Welcome back to another leveling series build video for Diablo 4 launch. Just like in my last leveling guide, I will be breaking down the skills you need to use to play my Earthbreaker Hammer of the Ancients build. Unlike in my last video, however, I will also be showing you the gear and aspects you should use or look out for when leveling. Before we begin, I noticed that many of you who watch my videos are not subscribed, and it would mean a lot to me if you subscribe to the channel. I am committed to the long haul of Diablo 4 as a creator, and you can count on me to provide solid, well-researched and tested builds and information, so please consider subscribing. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin and jump on into the build guide. Alright, we are on the skill point section of the video, but before we start, just keep in mind this build is subject to change as uniques become available. I'm just going to give you a basic outline that will easily get you to the end game and be effective, but obviously I'm not adding uniques because we don't know what all the uniques are, but this should be more than good enough to complete everything in the game because this is powerful in itself. Also, before we start as well, Frenzy would be the starter basic skill I would use, so just keep that in mind because it's better for Fury generation early, but I would eventually come to Lunging Strike as our main skill. Alright, so let's break down how we're doing this. So our basic skill is going to be Lunging Strike. This makes you like jump towards the target. It's really good for movement speed, and you'll see a theme in this build where we're very mobile. But yeah, Lunging Strike is what we're going to start with. It has a pretty good lucky hit chance and it generates okay amount of fury. We're going to go with Enhanced Lunging Strike next. This will give you some decent sustain and it will heal you based on, I believe, a % of 2, and then you have to hit healthy enemies, but that doesn't matter. Mainly what we want is Combat Lunging Strike, and this is going to give you Berserking whenever you crit. You have decent crit, so Berserking is really good for movement speed and damage, right? Obviously, the star of our build is going to be Hammer of the Ancients. You want to get Enhanced Hammer of the Ancients, and this is really good synergy because this is going to give you % increased Fury for every 5 seconds that you hit an enemy. So you hit a group of enemies, you'll get a % increased amount of Fury for a duration, and it stacks up to 10 times. And then we want Furious Hammer of the Ancients, which is going to give you 1% additional damage for each point of Fury that you have when you use it. And this build is built around hitting things one time and using all your Fury, so it synergizes super well. I don't think I would get Endless Fury this early on into the game, like super early, but I would eventually consider getting Endless Fury as you're going to use your like Lunging Strike is a two-hand skill. You know, you're going to be using like two-hand weapons a lot. This is only for the basic skill, obviously, but it still gives you a lot of extra fury. Next, we want Rallying Cry, and we're going to kit it out very similarly to previous builds. Enhanced Rallying Cry for Unstoppable, and then we want Tactical Rally Cry for Fury generation. If your Fury get to a better point, I'd rather say, you could get Strategic Rallying Cry to help you with Fortify, but early on you're going to be using Tactical Rally Cry. Next skill you want to pick up is Challenging Shout, and then you want Enhanced Challenging Shout for the extra life, and then Tactical Challenging Shout because this is going to give you more fury every time you take a hit. You are getting 10% additional damage reduction from the buff that we got recently, so getting hit isn't a big deal for you, and this is very important to have as it's going to help you with more fury. And you'll see why we need it because fury is going to be a big part of our build. Warcry is next. This is going to give you more damage, and then you want Enhanced Warcry for Berserking. When it comes to Power Warcry though, you're going to want to hold off on it a little bit early because you're not going to be really doing a lot of Warcries heavily early, and it'll be better for whenever you're farming a little bit more in the late game where there's more mob density and stuff. But it's still a great point. I would get it for just sustain whenever you're doing good dungeon clearing because you want to sustain high damage. So unlike in my other previous builds, we're actually going to be using Leap. Now Leap has, we want more mobility. Mobility is important and we want to get in close range to enemies. There is a lot of downtime and we want to keep our momentum when we're killing things, right? Leap is good for that. Also there is Power Leap, which will give you an additional 40 Fury, which is really great for whenever you land on an enemy, but you have to hit at least one enemy. Shouldn't be that hard. Either way, Leap is going to be part of the build because we want mobility, and just like that we have pretty much all our skills already ready to go. So early on you get all your skills relatively quick and you don't have to worry about having skills missing, so you're relatively powerful early. So from here on out we're essentially going to be getting basically the smaller nodes, not the big skill nodes, and we're gonna go over those. So booming voice is gonna be an option that I think is great. Eventually you'll have pretty much 100% uptime on your war cries if you get some of the aspects that I mentioned. But booming voice, really good. Again, previously, like I said in my last builds, if you're playing with allies, Raid Leader is amazing to help them sustain and keep them alive, as you'll have pretty good uptime on your war cries and you're using a lot of war cries. Really good synergies for your friends. I like mentioning playing with friends because I know a lot of people will play with their friends and stuff. We want to grab some of this stuff, specifically Prolific Fury. This one, while ever you're berserking, you'll gain additional Fury generation. And then Battle Fervor, which is really good because whenever you're using a berserking skill and you hit at least one enemy, you'll get berserking, and this synergizes really well. And then you use Leap, which again is another brawling skill. This is another great reason why we're using that skill, because we're getting more berserking from our Leap, which is pretty insane. Over here, we want Pit Fighter. I love Pit Fighter. I think it's great. It's damage to close enemies. You're always close. And then I like No Mercy because you will have extra crit against immobilized, stunned, or slowed enemies. You can make Mighty Leap be slowed, like slow, if you wanted to do that, but you'll have stun in this build, and I'll show you how you get it pretty easily. But you'll have 10% crit base, so it's pretty insane. All right, going down here, a lot of these skills down here are really great. We want Tempered Fury. This is going to give you increase on your Fury by 9, which is super good. But also Invigorating Fury. This is the real big one here, because they will heal you for 9% of your maximum life for every 100 Fury you spend. You will easily spend 100 Fury, and this is a great way to sustain, as there won't be a lot of sustain options outside of your potion, and maybe like some aspects you may get if you have like Raging on them. But we really want to get Invigorating Fury because we're spending a lot of points. So now over here we have Heavy Handed. This is going to give you more increased crit damage. It's a pretty decent node. It's not the best, but it's okay. Wallop, this is essentially going to give you more damage if they're stunned or vulnerable, but mainly the reason we want that is for concussion, because concussion has a really high chance for you to stun enemies, and this is what we're talking about with the synergy between No Mercy and bludgeoning weapons and concussion is going to stun enemies. And this is also a really massive defensive thing as well, because enemies won't be able to hit you, right, because they're stunned, in the event that you don't one-shot them, of course. But yeah, you get stunned with this. This is a massively good point. And then when it comes to our last, like the big passives here, we want Unbridled Rage. Core skills deal 135% increased damage, but cost 100% more Fury. And this is why we want a lot of Fury regen, because we're going to be spending a lot of Fury. You're going to use a ton of Fury for it. So it's really important you have that, but I'm going to show you other ways you're going to sustain Fury, and that's going to be for these aspects. Alright, now that we're done covering the skill points, let's cover the aspects. And let me again preface this by saying there are going to be unique that's probably going to be more valuable than some of these legendary aspects. So this can be subject to change, and you may want to build around a unique. I'll update the build obviously whenever the game comes out. Also, keep in mind that not all of these aspects are mandatory, and I'll point them out to you which ones are not, right? Alright, so first off, aspect of Numbing Wrath. For each Fury generation you have while at maximum Fury, you'll start to grant Fortify. This is a optional one, but it's one I really like because it helps you with damage reduction, because Fury Fortify will give you 10% flat damage reduction. It's easy to get more damage reduction through your gear. And then for overpower based stuff, which you can overpower really well with this build, this is really core to it. It's optional, but it's really good. Next is Aspect of the Protector. Whenever you hit an elite, you will get a barrier. The reason why we want this is, one, we don't want to die, obviously. But there is one called Conceited Aspect, which is another one. You deal increased damage while you have a barrier active. So you can deal more increased damage while you have a barrier and protect yourself, so you get 2 ways of damage. When it comes to Exploiter Aspect though, I'm not 100% sure on this one. Again, I test my builds heavily, but this one I'm not sure. I'm never afraid to tell you guys when I don't know something. Exploiter Aspect is really good, but I don't know if bosses are all considered unstoppable. I know some are unstoppable, but I don't know if they're all unstoppable. So this one could be a question mark, okay? But this is the only one like that. Windstalker aspect is a great one because you're going to be critting, and then you want momentum to move fast and to, you know, keep up your Hammer of the Ancients. What is it called? Your Hammer of the Ancients, enhanced Hammer of the Ancients buff. And you just want to keep your mobility up. You want to be fast. So this one's great because you crit a lot. Next is aspect of Limitless Rage. This one is absolutely core, and you cannot not use this one, okay? Each point of fury you generate while at maximum fury grants your next core skill increased damage up to 120%. When it's on a two-hand weapon, this is 240%. This is where a massive bulk of your damage comes in. I would highly recommend you put this on your two-hand weapon, and this one's core. Next is aspect of the expectant, and this one actually confuses a lot of players. This one should always be on your hand or your not two-hand weapon, on your just normal weapons, right? Because the way this one scales is will always give you 50% damage. The difference is whenever you put it on your two-hand weapon, it just makes it so that you only need 5 hits to get the 50% rather than 10 hits, right? You have an AoE on your core skill, so you'll be able to generate this relatively quickly. But yeah, this one doesn't scale that well, but it is valuable for the damage. Next is rapid aspect. This is going to give you your basic skills, increase attack speed. You want more attack speed, is valuable, right? This is also another mandatory one that is massive edge master aspect. Skills deal up to 34% increased damage based on your additional primary resource, or your available primary resource, excuse me, when cast, receiving the maximum benefit when you're at full primary resources. You're always going to attack when you're at primary resources, and your primary resources are going to be high. When this is on your two-hand weapon, this is almost 70%. And this is really, really valuable because, again, you're going to hit really, really hard. This is another optional one, but you have a lot of berserking. So you gain additional fury per second while berserking. You're very, almost constantly berserking. So this will give you a ton of fury sustain. And then it'll help you fortify, which again gives you more sustain. It's super good. Not mandatory, but optional. Conceited aspect, we talked about this one. Whenever you have a barrier up, you do more damage. Optional, but really good synergy. And then this one, I don't know. I love aspect of Echoing Fury. I love War Cries. I think this is one of the best aspects in the entire game. And I will almost always have this in almost all my builds. Your shout skills generate additional fury per second while active. You can keep your furies up for a long time. You have 3 furies, and you have 3 shouts, and every individual shout counts as an individual instance of fury generation. So if I'm getting 4 per, when I hit all 3 of these, I'm getting 12 per second. That's massive. So just keep in mind, I love this one. I'm a little biased towards it. I will always pick it, but this is very good towards the build, and I think it's core. All right, before we end this video, I don't have a way to show you what you should put on your gear in this planner. At least I don't think so. So I'm just going to name off a few stats that I think are valuable that you can pick up. And this is just stuff that comes on the gear, right? So you want to keep an eye out for damage to enemies that are close to you, increased vulnerability damage, core skill damage. Core skill damage is massive. I would say probably number 1. Physical damage, because this is a phys build. Overpower damage, you may go into overpower. This can become an overpower build. Damage against healthy enemies. This is super good because you do want to try to one-shot everything, because this is the one-shot build. That's really good. And then you can also look for skill rank stuff. But yeah, those are some of the things I would look out for my gear to put on. All right, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Like I said in the intro, I'm going to be providing you guys with a lot of builds like this during the launch and beyond. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button to support me, as well as give yourselves, a creator you can trust with making pretty solid builds. And I will see you guys in the next video very, very soon. Later.